Hi, we're going to look at triggers, scripting and animation inside Unity today. Now if you're a level designer, you would typically have to deal with setting up triggers and scripting for events in your game. Maybe not so much animations. Sometimes the animators will give you these and you won't be able to create them inside the editor, but inside Unity there is an animator, so we're going to use that for this purpose today. So you've got some assets that you should have imported. They're included in description. You see it's called My Assets. Now these were just quickly thrown together, so they're not quite perfect, but it gives you an idea of how you can set them up yourself. This is the door prefab here. We're going to use this door prefab first. We're just going to drag that in. We're going to reset this to 0, and actually we're going to raise this up by 1 in the Y, so it'll be on the floor. Now the reason we're using the door prefab and not this door model is that I've set up a pivot point on this one, the prefab, so it'll actually rotate from a hinge basically, so the door won't just spin around. So now that's in your level, we'll add the door frame as well while we're here. And again, I should just reset it to 0. Now it is a little bit out, so you want to potentially move this. I'm just going to move it manually, so it's roughly in the right place. Again, these are not perfect assets, they're here to show you how you could do it, and I quickly threw them together. So that looks about right. Oh, it's up a little bit. If you want, click the 2D view and then you can see it a bit better. Okay. Just have a look at my frame position. I'm just going to tweak this a bit to get rid of the excess numbers. I don't think it needs to be like that. There we go. You'll have something like that. It's still up a little bit. I'm going to put it back there actually. Okay, so we've got something that looks reasonably close to what we want now. And what I'm going to do is just go into Game Objects and create an empty object. I'm going to rename this one to Trigger. So at the moment this is going to do nothing. Again, it's just always good practice to reset these, even if you end up changing the values eventually. So I've got this trigger at 0, and actually I'm going to move it up a bit and into the middle of this doorway. So I'll just tweak these numbers a little bit up here myself. That's great. 0.5 and 1 in the Y. So I've got that trigger. And you can see that there's no landscape as well, so we're just going to go into Game Object, 3D Objects, and I'm going to use a quad. I just prefer it to the plane, it's easier to control and handle. Again, reset this one. I'm going to set a rotation of 90 in the X, and you see it's too small really. It's there, but it's much too small. So in the X and the Y, add 10. Don't change the Z value. If you change it to 0, for instance, it looks horrible. If you change it to 10, it doesn't make any difference, but I would say just keep it as 1. There's no point changing that value. I'm going to go into assets now, sorry, there's the wrong one there. And I'm going to import a new package. And I'm going to use one from Unity. I'm going to use the characters because we want the characters to wander around and activate the door. Now, you could be quite selective here, but I found that if you don't bring it across platforms, it won't work. And we can get rid of that first person. Well, we're not going to use that, and we're not going to use rollable. We're going to use third person character. I'm going to leave everything else imported just in case. There are some optional things, utility things here. We won't worry about that. It's quite small and we can clean it up later if we really need to. So it's just importing the scripts. You've probably done this before yourself anyway. It's good that Unity provides some files for you. It really helps out to quickly prototype up levels. It's nearly done. And just loading in the animations, and he's done. We just need to go into these standard assets and find characters, third person controller. Now we want prefabs. Don't go with the mesh that's called Ethan, go in prefabs. Third person controller, pull him across. He's there. I'm not going to reset him to 0 actually. Actually, I will. I'll just pull him out. But I'll rotate him 180 in the Y, so he's facing the doorway now, but not close to the doorway. In fact, I'll pull him back a bit more. There we go. He's quite far away now. Now, if we run this now, we haven't got a camera set up, so what I'm going to do is just take the game window and pull it over here. And this is really useful sometimes for like debugging, or if you just don't want to put in a camera, because now we've got this already set up. There's some oddness in that scene with that, isn't there? But we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to ignore this window now we've pulled over here, click it there and press play. And what we can do is, obviously the door won't open at all, we haven't actually set that up, but we can wander around now. It might be that you just want to put the camera there, and then when I go that way, you can see he goes towards the door. There's something weird with that door there. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. That should not be that far over. Okay. So we've kind of got what we want. And yeah, that was good. Now we're going to go back to this trigger, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a component. We're going to go into physics and add a box collider here. Now I've done this by accident myself. Don't adjust the scale. You want to adjust the size of the box collider. So I'm going to just type in 2, 2, and you see it's just gone around the door then. And in the Z, let's say 3, we want it much bigger than the door is. So when you walk into this area at the front, it'll open. I'd say for the side values and the height values, maybe you could bring it down a bit. So maybe that's just a bit too big. So let's say 1.5 or something like that. There you go, it's more around the door. The height is actually okay there, so we'll leave that as it is. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the door prefab that should be roughly in the right place now. Just trying to convince myself it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the door onto this trigger that we created. So hold down the left mouse button and just drag it. In it goes. Yeah, it still looks a little bit off, but for the purposes of this, we'll just carry on. So now I've got it to this point, we're going to do a little bit of scripting. So what I'm going to do is just go into the assets, right click, I'll create a folder this time. I'm going to create a scripts folder. Okay, that. We'll go in there, I'll right click again and go create, and there's an option for C# script. And I'm just going to rename this to trigger script or something like that. That's good enough. I'm going to open this. Okay, so I've skipped loading up Visual Studio because it takes about a minute on this machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is just delete this void update here. And we don't need to change anything else. Don't ever change this, else you'll find your script just won't work. It's got to be the same name as the script is. Go back in there in Unity. So the first thing we're going to do underneath this line is just write a private, and we're going to use controller. Oh, sorry, not controller, animator, which is the animator controller for Unity. So you see it's gone blue there, it's got the name there, and it's got a capital A in it. So we're going to make our own variable now. Actually, what we need to do is just put square brackets here, and now we're going to make our own variable. So you should have animator and these square brackets. So we'll make space for that. And we want to call it something like animator so we know it's ours. So just to make it really clear, we'll do an underscore and then type animator. Now we just do that because if it was like that, you could mix them up. So I'll make it much different. And we'll just set the value of null for this one. And we'll do a semicolon on the end. And we'll come out of that. We'll press return or enter next to the bracer where we've got start. And what we want to do is, remember that I earlier had this empty game component that I made called trigger, and we put box collider on it. Well, the reason is that if we were to put it on the door, this box collider, and we walked up to the door, it would just swing open with the door. So we want to get around that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this idea of a child, and we're going to tell the child to open. Now we can do that really simply. All we've got to do is where we've got our animator, we're going to make it equal. And normally what we do is we put the component itself, the game object component, into it. We're going to use something slightly different. We're going to use get components, and make sure it's a components in children. If you use the get component, you're just going to get an error. So very important, get components in children. You see it's like that. And we're going to add basic words, the less than or equal to symbols. It's done it for me, less than or equal to, and inside that I'm going to use Unity's animator, so the capital A without the underscore. See, it's linked there, and I'm going to use normal brackets there and semicolon, and that is that line done. Press return. I'm going to create a new line now. Now, because this is a component that is a child, it kind of using an array system, we're not really going to deal with that too much. All we're going to do is use the animator, and we're going to do these square brackets, and in there we're going to put 0, which is the first object in the array, which is also going to be this door, because it's the first one in the child's list. So we're just going to do .setBall, and we're going to instruct it to behave in a certain way now. Now you can call this ball anything. I'm going to use door open. That's fine. Oh, and after this, so that's in quotation marks. So I've just called mine door open. You can call it anything, or I could use it. Actually, let's call it door 3. No, actually, we'll leave it like that. Door open, that's fine. I'm just thinking, if I call it door trigger, it's too similar to the other names. I'm going to put this little comma here, and after the comma, I'm going to type false, because I want to set it to false when it comes into here. It's going to not do anything. A semicolon at the end, and we've done that line. Right, there's only 2 more bits to this, and they're really easy. So I'm going to do void on trigger enter. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to say something at this point. Just going back to Unity. Now, I've actually already done this myself, but you'll find when you go into here, I did it while I was waiting for Visual Studio, there's this option, is trigger, on your trigger object, game object that you made. Inside the box collider, click is trigger. You'll need this for the next bit. So if we go back to the code, that's what it refers to. If you don't click that, what's going to happen is it's just not going to work. It doesn't tell you it's not working, it just won't work. So we've done that now. We're going to make a collider, because this is a collider, not a collision, because it's a trigger now. So there we are, and we'll just give it a name, cold do. I mean, to be honest, we're not really going to make use of this, so it's probably not necessary. So we're going to add some new braces, and we're going to use this animator we had above, so a small lowercase animator with the underscore, and we're going to, oh, I've forgotten to put the square brackets in, and we're going to tell it it's 0. Now we're going to do this same line that we had above, so it's dot set bool, normal brackets, quotes, and door open, called it, and we're going to put a comma, and this time, because this is an enter one and we want the door to open, we're going to write true instead of false, and semicolon, and we've got this whole line now. Now this is why it's going to be easy. We're going to copy this, just copy it out, control, paste it in. See that this has gone red here. That's because we've got 2 enters and we can't do that. So we're going to change this one to exit. We want to know what we're going to do when we exit the volume. And what we're going to do is close the door, so we'll set that to false. And that is your script. That's it done. So we go back to Unity, get the script, pull it over. Oh, I've got 2 of them somehow. Let's reset. I'll remove it even. And there's no errors, good. Now how I end it with 2, that's okay though. So your script's there. Now we're going to make some animations. Let's make a new folder for these. Keep it in animations. And we're just going to go in here. Folder's empty. We're going to create these animations. We're going to click on this door and then we're going to go to window. And I've actually opened mine already, but when you open it, I'll tell you, I'll show you. When you open it, you'll get something like this, a tiny little window like this, and it's kind of rubbish to see what you're doing. Just click it and drag it, and I've put mine near my console and my project. You pull it onto that bar, it's snapped into place there. It gives you all this real estate to work on it. Click create. Okay, create this new animation, and I'll call this one open. And once you hit create and created it, saved it, you have these properties. We're going to do an add property. We're going to go into transform and we're going to do rotation. There's a little plus here. Click the plus. Now it sets up these keyframes, and this is, I think, a bit too long for the door to be opening. I'll take this down from 60 or 1 minute. Sorry, 1 second, isn't it? Go to half of that, 0.3, so that's half a second. It's going to open the door really quickly. It's going to swing open. So what we want to do is go into this rotation Y, and here at the start, we don't want to change this. You see this red line I'm moving? Just click the red line, or click anywhere, and you'll see the red line follows. Go to the end, make sure it's lined up. It should be lined up. And I'm just going to, in the Y, type 90. So the door flips open. Now just check it by just dragging this red line. You see it's closing and opening. That's perfect. So we go here and we copy these. I'm going to click. I'm going to do Control C. And I've got our open animation, but we need a close one. So now we've copied those. Go to create new clip from this drop down where the open is, and create a new clip. We'll call this one close. You can call it close if you want. I'm not really bothered about that. I'll just give it a name that's obvious to what it's doing. Go to transform, see the rotation again, press the plus. In fact, I didn't really need to do that, but I'll just drag those down again, same place as last time. And if I go onto this red line here and click this top grey bar, the darker of the grey bars, you see I've got this top keyframe. Control V, and those settings we had earlier will be pasted across. Now for this, you probably didn't really need to do that because it's setting it to 90 and back to 0. But if you've got bigger animation, maybe you want to copy those across, and there's a nice way of doing it. We're going to just press this red circle here and get rid of the animation from recording. It sometimes messes up. We don't need it now. So we've done that. We've got our animation, we've got a script that controls it. Now we need another script that actually implements it. And this is what this animator does. So if I double click it, you see you get an open and closed. And what I'm going to do, they're referencing your animation, see, open, closed, see the motion there. I'm going to copy this top one. I'm just going to Control C it, Control V. Oh, that didn't work. Then we can just copy it here, paste. We've got two opens, which is a bit silly, isn't it? So we'll rename these. We're going to call this top one idle. So this is what's going to happen when the game starts. It will go into idle. I'm going to set the speed to 0 on this one. You'll see why later on. Wait, actually, you possibly won't. So I'll explain. We set this to speed 0 because we don't really want this animation to play. We don't really want to see the open door animation. We just want it so it has something in there. And the door starts closed on the open animation. So the first frame, the frame that it'll be stuck on, is the one where it's closed. Now I want to transition between this, so we'll click there, and I'm just going to name this one open. Now we should, at this point, before we go any further, just create that ball. Now what was my ball again? It was door open. So we'll just go here, and you see these layers and parameters. The layers have something in, because that's what you're working on. Parameters, it says list is empty. We'll change that. We'll click this little plus here, it's not very clear. Click ball. And we want that name. So I'll tell you what, let's make it easy on us. Let's just copy it. This is good because then we'll get the exact name, we won't mess it up. So we'll just copy that in. There's door open, see? Now you could set this as true. I'm going to leave this as false because I think otherwise you'll get undesirable results. Because you want it when it comes in to do nothing. You don't want the door to open straight away. So we're going to right click on this idle, the orange one that we created, renamed earlier, and we'll go make transition. And you see this arrow appears, and you just click on open. We're going to do the same again, but with open. We're going to click on open, make transition, and go to closed. We're going to finally do the same again on closed and go back to open. So that's just right click, make transition, and drag the arrows between them. Now we've done almost everything we need to do, so the only other thing we need to do is check these arrows. So if we click on the top arrow between idle and open, turn off the exit time, and we're going to add this transition that's going to activate it, which is our ball. So we're going to click this little plus. You see it says door open now, which is the only parameter on our list. I mean, if there were more, they'd appear here, but that's good. So we do want it to happen when it's true. We want to switch from this idle state to open when you walk into it the first time. That's great. We'll click on this one. This one's a bit different. We want to get rid of this exit time. I'll go down to the bottom and into the conditions. And again, click the little plus. This time, we're just going to change that to false because we want the door to close. Finally, I'm going to click the close to open, and we want it to do the same as in the idle. Basically, we want it to switch back from being closed back to open. So we untick that, You go to conditions, it's already set, door is open. I think that should be it. So I'm just going to click there again just to be in my game mode. And if I click, just make sure this looks good. Do check that your animator's in the door. Mine is already, so I'm going to click here. I walk that way, the door opens, you see. Oh, now why is that doing that? Why do we think that is? Oh, I know. It's another problem when you make these animations. They always switch loop time on, so we'll just turn the loop time off. Try again, and this time now turn that off. The door opens, you go through it, it closes when I got far enough away, and it opens again when I get close, and that's it. We've got a working door. Okay, so I hope you learned something about triggers and scripting and animation and how they work together to make a game experience, and how you as a level designer will be implementing these things. See you next time.